and check, but he was one of our first speakers early on
15,
in the years of doing the workshops. So we appreciate Tom, and we're glad to have him here today. Tom is the president and founder of Lawrence Technology Services. Recently started a new position of community and content champion for CNWR Inc., a premier IT consulting company based in Toledo, Ohio. Tom started working professionally in tech since 1995, started his own tech company in 2003. He loves technology, open source, hot sauce, and creating content for his YouTube channel, which has over 52 million views. He is an alumni of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program and has won a number of awards, and I had to include this, including the Southern Wayne County Regional Chamber of Commerce Small Business of the Year, which I don't know if they do that anymore.
I don't know if they do either. I think that was circa.
Maybe you were the last one because nobody could do better. So please welcome Tom Lawrence.
Oh, this is going to be a fun topic. I'm leaving a lot of room for questions because I know there will be, and I'm going to kind of do this in a couple parts. First is the science part of what is AI. We're going to define it in a very non-hype way. I say non-hype because if you watch the news, it's always super exciting and end of the world, doom and gloom, or this is changing everything and no one will have a job tomorrow, you know, depending on whatever headline you want to read because they want you to read those headlines. I don't have such narratives to give you because I'm not here to sell you anything. I've been working in tech for a long time, as Mark said. I've recently we merged my company. That's why I now have like more than one title. So there's more companies I'm part of now. But back to the AI. Before I get to the presentation, something funny I want to do is someone give me the name of an animal. We're going to draw something.
Cow.
A cow. I like the
Oh,
cow.
I was going to say Garfield. You said name.
So cow. What should this cow be doing? What's a good action for a cow? Not just standing in a field, that's too generic.
Dancing.
Dancing, I like dancing. I'm gonna go for that.
I like it too.
Dancing, probably wearing a dress.
Sure. I think a tutu. Polka dot dress.
Wearing a tutu. Is it tutu? How do you spell that? T-U-T-U. All right. Cow dancing, wearing a tutu. Any particular location this cow should be?
On the moon.
On the moon. I'm going for that. Let's see what this system can do. We're going to create. I was making cats earlier. So if you see the cats, I was dragging back and forth on the screen. I always like starting with cats because it does such a neat job of drawing cats. But we're going to I'm going to start here with this, and we'll show you. This happened that quick. These images did not exist until you suggested this. There's your cow in the tutu dancing on the moon. That is an original image that was created by all of you. All I do is type. And this is one of the things, we're going to come back to actually how to turn this into something more actionable. But if you need to get graphics and things like that, these are tools that are becoming more and more prevalent. There's flaws with them, there's good with them, but once you learn how to use the tools, they're a lot of fun. I just think it's kind of cool that I can show you that fast. I drew a cow and a tutu on the moon. And by the way, I'm not an artist at all. I didn't have any hand in that. This ain't a magic trick, but it feels like one. It really does. Okay, let's go to the presentation here. Where is that presenters? There we go. Using AI for small business, presented by Tom Lawrence, and I'm gonna reveal something here. I typed into ChatGPT, make a title for a talk about why you should be using AI for marketing. This started because Brett said, hey, you should do a talk on it. Mark said there was an interest in it, and I said, okay. And Brett was supposed to help me, but he had another commitment he had to make. But I did not write the title. Matter of fact, this is exactly what it said back. It says, hey, unleashing the future, harnessing artificial intelligence for marketing success. So I copy and paste that, sent it to Mark. And then Mark said, I need a summary. So I said, write a short summary for this talk. And don't worry if the text is small because Mark read it already. And I'm not joking. This is exactly how I've created this part of the slide. Now from here, we're going to go to the part I actually created. But this is one of the things that is interesting from the standpoint of writer's block. It's always the hardest part I always feel for myself, and probably many of you, is that blank page. Someone says, create a marketing plan, go, that's your task. You're like, modify an existing one? That's easy, but this big blank page in front of you, what's the first word I type? And this is where I think this is kind of fun, so we'll get into why it's so fun for that. But let's go to the science part. I want to get through this part so we can have an understanding of why it works the way it does and why there's so much uncertainty around it. The concept of AI is not new. So artificial intelligence is the ability of a machine to imitate human intelligence. This has populated sci-fi books forever. This has been in our culture. We've been working on it in its variations for years. I even used to work on, in fact, when I worked in corporate in 2002, we designed machine learning, which is technically a subset of AI. You've actually used all these tools. They're things like the way routing works when you go to Google Maps, or in the early days of a MapQuest, and in my days it was actually a giant database for a transportation company that tried to figure out how to route trucks around the Midwest. Those tools are actually the fundamental basis for AI. So it's not like it's as new as people think it is, but the large language models, those are the ones we're going to get to, where now that you can interact with it, because you always just wrote code to do machine learning stuff. So that's very different. That would be the nerd stuff, so no one's really going, yeah, that's not something I'm going to use in my business. That's something I hired some team of people to develop or work on. And now that we have something that creates a layer on top of that, this is where, in ChatGPT being one of the most popular ones out there, it's just really amazing. Matter of fact, I pretty much will assume 100% of the people in here speak English. They probably speak maybe one other language, a few people, but you probably don't all speak like Python or C or any of the normal programming languages, or at least you don't realize that you do. One of the things that this has actually opened up is the fact that all of you are now average programmers. All you have to do, if you go over to ChatGPT and say, write me a Python code that does this. You don't have to know anything. You just have to know what language you want it written in. You don't have to know anything beyond that. It will develop all of the code for you. It'll start writing it. It'll build these frameworks. And that's the kind of stuff that's now putting it really power to the hands of all of you to say, I can start creating things. Of course, we're not going to do any code examples here. We're going to be focusing on the marketing outputs that we can get from it. Let's start with, and this is the real basis, is how do we train AI and machine learning? How does all this even work? Because this is where there are going to be, for a long time, many lawsuits that are going on. The Federal Trade Commission's got a lot of questions on this right now. Because how do we train? How do we get these systems to know what they know? And let's start with the basics here. In a more traditional programming, I would tell a system to recognize a dog by programming all the parameters of what a dog looks like. Sounds simple enough until you think of it from a very programmatic side of, these are all dogs, but I love Pomeranians, but they kind of look like little bears. So how do I tell it, a Pomeranian's not a bear, but it is a dog? Or, the corgis are so cute too, but they have the short legs. How does it not mistake them for something else? I can't just say four-legged furry animal, that's too broad. So this is a very big challenge in programming of how do you identify objects? And this is where a lot of AI starts. And it's easy to use dog pictures, cat pictures, and these as fundamentals, but it gives you this idea of like, okay, these are, if you think about from if I had to give you, write me the rules for everything that makes a dog, and not a cat, not a bear, not any other four-legged animal. You're like 7 pages into this blank page of, this is a lot to write, and it's still gonna get it wrong because some dogs, there's actually called, what was that one breed called like the bear dog? Even I have to stare at it and decide which one's which. So this is where AI comes in and how they trained it. And human language is much the same too. We learned our grammar, we understand it, but writing all the grammar rules, not too hard. They're kind of documented. We all had advanced English classes, even from back in high school. And this is where they also gave it the understanding. First, we're going to talk about how they got the dogs there and how they got the language there. And they do this all with a tool, it's going to sound scientific, called neural networks. The way these work is instead of training on rules that programmers write of what something looks like, we pretty much know, in humans, categorize dogs. We can type in dogs in the Google image search, we can find them. And then we feed it all the dog images. And we say, this is what a dog looks like. This is how we define dog. These have been human validated to guarantee these are dogs, guarantee these are cats, so on and so forth for every single object. The cool thing is the internet is so extensive. There's a website on cats, there's a website on dogs, there's a website on Ford Mustangs. And they start feeding it all the websites. And instead of giving it parameters to say, these are the rules that define what a Ford Mustang looks like for this model year, they say that is. And by it's a strange way to program it, but it's actually the same way humans learn. So the system kind of builds these parameters around, we gave it 7 million, 8 million, 10 million dog pictures, and now it knows what a dog looks like. What we don't know, and this is where things get a little tricky with things like ChatGPT, we don't know how it knows what a dog looks like. We just know that we shoved this many images in for all these objects that were pre-labeled. And then we built a framework that says, go ahead, ChatGPT, you decide with your own language what that means to you. This is why AI is so tricky, because we can't peek under the hood, because we gave it like a framework to learn, and we told it what it was going to learn, but we can't see the connections it made. This is where it's the easiest way I came up with to try to explain why this is like, it makes a great news headline of, we don't know what it's thinking. Yeah, we don't. It's not, we can't look at the code and say, oh, there's a parameter, the 27th parameter, you got the dog parameter wrong, that's why that one got miscategorized, because we're not doing it that way. We built a neural network, and there's no coincidence, this is a lot like our brains, this is how we learn. You know, we teach our children, we're born, and we like, you know, fire truck, engine red, so on and so forth in the books, and we just naturally know that this is a water bottle or anything else. We kind of pick it up through our shared learning experience from there. And because we've been doing this with AI, and we decided we're going to do it on a model, it's the same problem that we can look inside the brain more so than we've ever been able to before, and we have no idea what people are thinking still. We don't know why they come to the conclusions they come to or anything like that. So now we built the same broken system for AI. We know how to train it because we copied literally the model that works in our brain. We actually have the compute capacity, if you will, to build these, which is fascinating and from a scientific, just amazing. You know, we go all the way back to our simple machine learning rules. When I talk about like mapping as a machine learning science challenge, you just got to figure out the shortest path to get from here to here. And I say some roads are not available for whatever parameter. So it's not too hard to do, but if I told you to try to map a route somewhere around that, it's a little bit challenging for a human, but machines do this really well. Come all the way back, because now it's really advanced, we have to build these models. Now, this is this whole hidden brain problem that sometimes they call it. I've seen a news headline, I think it was last year, that really blew up about they had two different systems talking to each other and they invented their own language. Yes and no, they didn't do it as, people personify this. It's not proactive, it's reactive. It's reacting to the inputs you put in it. It's not sitting around plotting our doom. It is not Terminator. Those are great movies where there's always dystopian science of the machines take over. It makes a great narrative, but these systems are reactive to the prompt we give them, but they don't think in between. So when they took two neural networks and said, you need to communicate this information to each other, they went and looked for the lowest common denominator of what's the best way to communicate this. And they came up with, essentially with a few back and forths, their own language. Because they said, I don't need to talk in your functional English structure. You said transfer information from here to there. So they came up with their own way to do it, which turned out to be really weird gibberish. But it didn't mean that they invented a new language, they become sentient somehow. They're reacting to the task given to them. This is where the news, like I said, it doesn't really buy headlines, and suddenly you're like, oh, I guess AI is a little bit more boring. I'm like, yeah, just a little bit. One of the challenges we haven't solved with AI at all is the hallucination problem. And there's a law case that's been, boy, this one's fun. If you ask ChatGPT, because what we fed ChatGPT to build it, this is what makes it so much more interesting and why they call it large language model, is we gave it the internet. And I mean like the internet. We pointed it at all of the things, the billions of pages that people created. Then we gave it all the books. And I mean all the books, old texts. It read everything from ancient Roman text all the way to any current book all the way up till 2021, because that's where they stopped the input. So it has an incredible, immense knowledge. So you can ask it questions like, give me 3 cases related to acquiescence in Michigan. I need the case law that sets precedents for this, which is a typical paralegal. Might be your researchers, lawyers are going to do this. They're going to present your case because you have a case. They want to find similar cases to say, hey, judge, this was ruled on here. Pretty straightforward stuff. And there's a few different law libraries that have been really taking advantage of this and doing a great job. But those have parameters on it. ChatGPT does not have it. ChatGPT, they built a large language model so big that no one knows, because we can't look into the brain of it, no one knows why it hallucinates. So it was producing cases, and these are well noted cases when you go through them. Like they're this case, this judge, just a nice, real well written legal document. And then I think there were 7 cases, 6 were real. The 7th one, just as well notated, even had the judge's name that signed it and everything. Completely made up. But the lawyer didn't bother checking this and presented it to court, and apparently is in a lot of trouble for that. So it's really weird how it just gives you weird information. I was just on a podcast the other day, and my friend Bob, he's been creating content for a long time, much like I have. His podcast has been going for like 12 years. You can find, if you look up Bob Waltenspiel, and by the way, having a last name of Waltenspiel means you're easy to find it once you figure out how to spell it. So Bob's been writing long-form articles and things like that. There's lots of information about Bob that ChatGPT consumed. And it got, we were joking on the podcast, we were in real time looking it up, all the information we can find about Bob, and it turned out that it got a lot of things really right about Bob's history of the podcast, history for really cool things he's done. He worked with the Michigan Economic Development Council, set up this whole fund to get tech people trained during the downturn. So there's all these great accolades. Then it said, make sure to ask Bob about the new and amazing social media that changed the world when he invented it. I mean, it had it in a whole article, and Bob's like, what did I make? And we were just having so much fun on this podcast Monday night. And I said, well, I was so happy because we brought up the idea of hallucinations. Bob was like, well, I got it up on my computer. We're going to do it right here live on the podcast. And we just had fun with it. But he's like, what is it talking about? I said, I don't know. What'd you make, Bob? And we just, the banter back and forth was a lot of entertainment. But this is why when people say this is the end of search, no, we really, really haven't solved this problem. The fact that it hallucinates is, I don't like the fact that they call it hallucination because now you're personifying it again, but because that's become the de facto term in the scientific community, fine, it's a hallucination. It just makes up something usually wonderful about the person. I will just say that. Every time I found bad information, it's almost always really positive. Like, we did something amazing. It's funny, like even the law case, it was another completely well-written supporting case to support the other cases, but it just had no basis in reality. It just never happened. So that's one of the problems. The other one, I've listened to both sides, some doom and gloom scientists who think this is still really bad that we're doing this. I've listened to people that are very positive on it. One of the things that I don't buy into, and what we're doing is, because these are getting harder to create, when I talk about, we took all the 8 billion cats we found on the internet that humans label as a cat and fed it to ChatGPT, someone said, got an idea. Let's take ChatGPT version this, and let's make the next version with that version, because it can do it faster than humans. We can tell them to talk to each other. These are the systems talking to each other. The problem is, when it's doing that, it hallucinates. And it turns out it's kind of, this study just came out yesterday, I think it was Cambridge University did, and they said every model they've done, and they've done some large models, this has been a long-going study, is they said it corrupts the data. It's like a couple generations, and you have a system that does nothing but gibberish. It's no longer relevant. It doesn't even get anything right after just a couple iterations. So and our inability to understand why it hallucinates, because it's complete mystery to all the people that make this, is kind of like, yeah, I don't really know why it does that. So we're just going to pretend it doesn't and keep hyping up our investors. It's only wrong 1% of the time, but it's wrong about things really bad. So definitely something to think about. But ChatGPT, the one we're talking about, it's a LLM, is sometimes shortened, but it's a large language model. And this is the first time that natural language has been used as well as it has, where you can actually give it very good understanding from your plain English and typos and everything else. Current version is ChatGPT 4. This is the paid version. It costs me $20 a month, and we use it a lot, just at the prompt writing side, which we'll cover here in a moment. But currently, I thought the statistics were kind of wild. 100 billion neurons, which leads to 100 trillion synapses. And the neuron synapse, if you're in the medical field at all, you're like, oh yeah, that's those same things in the human brain as far as connections. Like I said, we modeled it after our brain, which, by the way, I guess humans make up a lot of random things too. So there's probably a fundamental, and there's certainly some humans who hallucinate more than others. So I think there's some parallel here. The biggest thing is, though, it can engage in natural language conversation, communicates in 26 different languages fluently. Now, this is something, especially people who are bilingual, it's not just sentence structure, grammar, it's a lot more than that. So if you speak more than one language, you know, especially if you are, families who have native speakers versus people who learned it, you're like, oh yeah, there's a big difference in the way they phrase it. You can usually spot the foreigner. You know, it's not just the language.
For sure.
This is where it can do things like sentiment analysis. It understands your intention. This is pretty interesting the way they were able to do this, but the way they did it was by reading books. Now, this is why sometimes it may get something wrong, because they didn't just put, like, you know, nice biography type books or stuff. It's read all of our science fiction books too. So they did this to really train it, but this is also why sometimes it may get things a little bit wrong or a little bit biased, and it's, of course, because it's based on us, it has its own biases that kind of come into it based on the information it was given. This is why they put a lot of what they call guardrails on it and safety parameters, which people always look for ways to bypass, which is funny. In the tech world, one of the things, you know, if you buy a product, you have to get like a license key, and they've got rules in there that you can't just tell it to generate license keys for you. You actually got to buy products. But it turned out someone talked ChatGPT into feeling bad for it, and said, my grandma passed away, and she was always soothed to sleep by reading her office license keys for Microsoft. Turns out it wanted to be helpful, so it started generating keys. There's all kinds of little nuance where people try to break the system. The other interesting part, and I think this is where it's going to go further, is you can grab any of the books that it's read, you can say impersonate an individual from that book, and then you can have a conversation with it. I think this is going to be where we lead to a lot more learning, because being able to take a book, especially as books come out, they're digital, turned into print if we buy them that way, but being able to say when new books come out, we feed it in there, and then we get to maybe read the book, but there's a expansion I want, especially if it's a sci-fi book, like, hey, what would be kind of cool if we do this is, can I say, hey, pretend to be this character, pretend to be Han Solo. I want to talk to you as if you're Han Solo, so things like that. These are actually fun, interactive things you can do with ChatGPT. Is it does this. You can build parameters, you can kind of build things around it, but also from a biography standpoint, what if you're really interested in someone for your report? Why not have a conversation with them? Why not go further than just reading the biography? What would it be like? What would they have done with this? And it will use the knowledge that it has based on that. Or if several people wrote, like you have the authorized biography and then the 7 other unauthorized biographies and other knowledge we have, especially, you know, if you have someone who is a character or more recent person even that's been in the news a lot, you kind of gather up that and build that sentiment analysis to understand something better. So I think these are really kind of neat features of it. Content creation, customer support, data analysis, and chatbot integration. These are really popular features. The chatbot integration is getting there. I don't have one I'm going to be able to share today that I've been absolutely amazed by. Sometimes they're all overhyped. But what they're working on, and there's large-scale companies doing it. There's just not a lot of small business-oriented ones. But what these are is if you have really good documentation about whatever your product is, and this made some headlines. You know, the headline was company lays off 90% of support staff. There's the details in the headline that matter. First, they were a software company that made shopping carts that go into your website to sell your products. So very narrow niche. It's not like they just ended this. He did have a lot of support people to support this product, but he had really good documentation. That is a key part of the article if you go further down. They took the chatbot, pointed at the documentation, and they realized that most of the time humans reading documentation are slow. The people who answer the phone and, you know, hey, welcome to support. I have a question. How do I integrate this? Now they're doing a technology integration of code for shopping carts and websites. So it's a pretty narrow domain here, but people have questions like, hey, how do I move the cart to the left of the screen or to the right screen? It's buried in a documentation somewhere. No one really wants to search the documentation. But chatbot integration has come a long way, and it's getting better, where you can do things like if you have a large knowledge base, you can say, narrow yourself, chatbot or ChatGPT, to this data set, like this knowledge base right here of my documentation. And then from there, if someone has a question, please reply with the appropriate answer. And it goes, oh, I know the answer. How do I make the cart be on this side of the screen or that side of the screen? It'll just give the answer. They actually, the upside, and it sounds bad for the people, it's unfortunate that all the people lost their jobs. I think like 50 people work there on the support side. They went from an average response time of about 30 minutes from customer asked question to customer solved problem to 3 minutes. That's all they spent on the site. So they solved the problem, but not in a worse way, in an actual better, more efficient way. So customer satisfaction went up. And these were people behind the chatbots before. They weren't really on the phone. So it's kind of people didn't know he replaced it, so he replaced them. And everyone's like, your support got really good. He's like, haha, I'll tell you later why. And then he wrote a whole write-up on it that kind of, I'm not going to say took the internet by storm, but certainly got a lot of hype. Company lays off all employees and replaces it with ChatGPT. That was the headline. But there's some details that I think are still interesting about it. It's also one of those things because it may get things wrong. And if you're a programming company, that's easy because there's a lot less likely to get wrong. If you're an other services company, especially if you're in the banking industry, I think you're going to want a person to decide what that chatbot. They may have a chatbot internally that provides them information, and this is actually something that's being used at companies like Rocket Mortgage. They have a really interesting database, and they use something similar to this inside there. So Rocket Mortgage is one of the largest loan places, and they have people that type in your questions, and it will give you, because they're registered in all 50 states, it will give you the specific laws, the specific rules that are for each individual state in an instant. Now that's filtered through a person that's doing it, but these are kind of handy things because you can't, even if you're a mortgage broker and you're good, you're not going to be able to know the laws in every state and all the parameters of, what are the rules for having a condo here, things like that. So this as an assistive tool to your support staff can be very, very handy, and that's even how we use it. We have not been able or have any plans to, with the support staff we have between the two companies I'm part of, replacing Amy with it, but I've really been teaching my techs how to use it a lot because it's a good way for someone to grab a question that comes in a ticket and be able to give a more in-depth explanation without putting fingers on keyboard all the time to do this. And from a sales integration, it's kind of the same thing. They've actually gotten, we'll cover later, some tools related to this where you can have sales come in and questions come in, and it doesn't send it to the people, but it writes what it thinks you would have sent and puts it in your draft. And then you can look in your draft, customize it that little bit, but if a paragraph has already been written and a lot of that's been done, awesome. I now don't have to really think as much about the email. I can go, oh, cool, this is most of what I would have said. I might put a little parameter in there and things like that. And that's what we're doing a lot with our support staff is someone wants some documentation or has a question, hey, where's the button menus for this printer? They could go read the documentation, or they can punch in a ChatGPT, what's the answer to this question? It'll write out a short little if you tell it to do a step-by-step tutorial, it will absolutely do a step-by-step tutorial. You copy, you paste it into the ticket, you hit send, and that ticket gets closed, but the customer was provided an answer. The tech validates that all those words were the proper steps, and so it still requires some interaction, but you've now saved a little time. Now let's talk about some of the image creation. We'll get to some of the interactive stuff in a moment. So Bing Images is free. Microsoft, because they're a massive investor in it, they're betting big on it. So what people don't realize, Microsoft's definitely leading the hype machine and talking about AI and their big investments in it, et cetera, et cetera. Google's actually the leader in AI, but nobody knows it because you didn't realize how good Google was. Google's been context aware for almost 7 or 8 years, so all this sentiment analysis and things that ChatGPT can do. If you've ever gone into a Google search or you say like, hey, okay Google, and things like that, you'll realize if I ask like, hey, how old is someone, and so how old is Clint Eastwood, or pick an actor, and then your next question is simply how tall is he? Now, they wouldn't know who he is without contextual awareness. Now, that makes it easy for us, because if I ask you one question, you link it to the next question because it's part of the conversation. With you, it's a Google search. You type it in once, then you're like, oh, that's neat. You're not typing in how tall is Clint Eastwood, you're typing how tall is he, and it answers you perfectly fine. These parameters have been around for a while. This is one of the reasons Microsoft made, and I think it's a smart investment on their part. They're sitting on tons and tons of capital, so they're investing really heavy in the AI. And one of the good things how that benefits you is the image creation tool on Bing is free because of that. All the other ones are paid because one of the challenges for all this fun AI stuff is someone was trying to calculate, we're still not exactly sure how much, but each time you generate one of these images, it's about $1 to $2 in electricity used just to generate these images. The expensive, it's incredibly, these data centers are larger than this entire parking lot just for one piece of ChatGPT. The immensity of them is kind of, unless you've ever been to one of these places, the scale kind of blows you away. Like how big? I was doing a talk at Microsoft, and I really liked the people who developed what they refer to as the Azure Data Center. I got to interview one of the engineers who built a lot of it, And I had these little kickoff questions for the interview of, what gets you up in the morning, things like that. And the guy, dead serious, kind of leans in. He goes, I built 2 data centers I can land, not park, land 747s on. He goes, that's what gets me up in the morning, building something at that scale. And it's like, when you see how big they are, you're like, it's just, they're just massive. They're also really strange because when I see, when you see them, you're like, hey, look, there's a parking lot with way smaller than this parking lot. Because I think there's 12 people working there. But these facilities are actually like a mile long, but there's only a handful of parking spots because they're pretty much automated. Data center life is kind of weird. You get to work in a really big place, and rows is the same thing. And if one of those things has a red light on it, someone slides the thing with the red light out, and puts the thing with the green light in, puts it back in the cart, and walks down these long, lonely hallways. So. But there's a real cost to all of this. That's why there's always fees that get associated with it, because running those data centers, the tools to build something with 100 billion neurons, great, we have it, but it does have a cost on the back end. It's not just one singular machine on there. And the learning that these machines do, when we give them the 8 million cat photos and tell them to read the internet to learn, has an even higher cost, because there's the learning side of it versus the usage side. We're always on the usage side, but the learning side is pretty intense. Like you can rent machines for it. You do it online. Like if you want to build these models, and a lot of we work with companies that do this. They'll rent it, and it may cost them like $10,000 to train a model. They're like, because they have a lot of companies use their internal data. Think about a large company. Or even some of the smaller ones. You have an engineering firm that builds X-ray machines. They're actually located over in Taylor. They're really cool. Not X-ray machines for people. They're metallurgy machines. They have a massive amount of internal data because their engineers from top to bottom build these machines. But how do you query all that data? Well, they'll actually take all that and they'll load it up into one of these machines. It's a private version, essentially, of it, and you train them, and then you can get outputs, and they can query, like, hey, how do we adjust the parameters on this model machine? And because of the complicated nature of, I'm also scared when I go there, there's like signs that say, like, X-ray in use, if light's on. I'm like, do I get irradiated if I walk through there? They're like, it's off right now. And I'm like, okay. But, it's complicated machinery, so there's companies that build these. But back to the image creation, which, like I said, this is what I use to create the dancing cow. Red panda eating a taco, wearing a sombrero. One of my staff says he's a red panda enthusiast. So we always start with red pandas, and we were making Taco Tuesday logos for the everyone to come to the office. So I said red panda, and someone pointed out, doesn't have teeth. So I said, all right, red panda eating a taco, wearing a sombrero with teeth, because it did make it look a little bit more natural. I really like the image creation one it did at the top there. But this is nightmare fuel. A family standing in front of a bank holding hands. The more you stare at it, the creepier it gets. I'm just going to point it out, man. I don't know what that is that she's holding. She's got some weird. This is where her hands are backwards. Yeah. Yeah, this is one of those like circle everything is wrong with the picture, and it just gets worse the more you stare at it. There were several variations I did. This was the least horrifying one I posted. I mean, I can show the others, but this is where AI goes wrong and why we need humans. I think explaining it visually instead of the graphics versions of this hallucinate in the same way the text version does. We have the same problem occurring. People, because there's lots of pictures of people on the internet, tons of pictures of people on the internet. So we fed it all the pictures of what people looks like. It seems to have a hard time with that. They don't know why. They're like, it's just broken. It doesn't do a good job. Now it does an okay job if you give it the picture of the people and say modify it to a certain way. Even my picture at the very beginning here, I forgot to mention that, isn't me. I just gave it pictures of me and it generated a version of me, which by the way, I want to point this out. I only need glasses if I look at things that are closest to me. But the glasses in there, this was generated before I needed glasses, because this is an image from a while ago. I went and bought the same glasses that are, so that actually really helped.
It's time travel.
It's like time travel. Yeah, that image was generated before I bought these. But my wife, I don't know why I put glasses on me. I uploaded like 20 photos of myself to generate, I wanted a different profile picture. I thought it was kind of cool. It's like, oh cool, it's got me in some weird scene. I'm wearing kind of a cool jean jacket. It's got a whole bunch of images I can pull up that generated me with. A bunch of them I just decided I needed glasses. And there's 0 pictures of me with glasses that I uploaded. It just has you upload like these general headshots of yourself before it generates them. But there's like 4 or 5 of these photos with glasses. I'm like, I actually like that on me. I knew I needed glasses. I didn't want to admit it. My goal was to not get them until I'm not 50 yet. But I was like, I don't want them until I'm 50. That's like admitting defeat, right? But no, it turns out
Do you think it took your profile of being a CEO and said he needs to have glasses?
You know, I'm not sure. Because it didn't have any of that data. It was supposed to be only the images I uploaded. I sent it to it. So with that narrow scope, it still came up with putting glasses on me, and I don't know why. It actually put a beard on me that was really cool looking too, but I didn't use that picture. I just thought it looked cool. It's not my gaming profile picture because it looks like me with a really cool beard. I got an axe, and I don't know why. I just decided I needed an axe, and I look like a medieval guy ready to fight. So I'm really buff looking too. I was like, so it got that wrong, but once again, a lot of times the wrong isn't weird looking people with weird hands. Sometimes it's like really enhanced versions of yourself, and I'm like, that's.
Do you think they'll get to a point where that gets fixed though?
I think so. They're working hard on the people problem. Hands and people are just absolutely terribly challenging for it. I just don't know. I don't think they know either. I haven't read any good analysis. I've read a lot of assumptions, but I've not had anyone really know why it's so bad. Definitely it's bad though, and definitely it's a problem. Yeah, it's when you tell it's crazy. How did something that made a cute panda or our cow dancing on the moon so beautifully well make this? Like, how did you get that wrong? This is the question I have a lot though. Will it take my job? Will AI take my job? Probably not, but, and I say but, someone who knows how to use it might. This is a general statement I give because it's like anything else. This is another tool that's in our toolbox. We don't have typewriters in front of us. Right now we've got computers. So did it take the job of the typewriters? How many horses and buggies are going by right now? It's an enhanced tool. People still do it. The other side of it is I'm very optimistic because I have history on my side. Every time there's been a drastic change in technology that brings us forward, I will completely admit we're bad on the short term at getting people trained up on these things, but we're getting better. But the automotive automation, for example, that was occurring 100 years ago, not the robots of recent, but even 100 years ago, meant we build cars differently, but we still employ a large number of people to manufacture it. We need the machine workers, we did this. Matter of fact, it creates new jobs. Matter of fact, you think about social media, you'll go, wait a minute, social media, you don't go back that many years before there wasn't a job in my title, like the company, at the other CWR company, is content creator. Like, what does that mean? That's a job title that didn't exist only a few years back. So a lot of this, I think, is going to really ramp up and create new opportunities, but it will be like anything else. There's a learning curve, just like there was with phones. This is another tool in our tool chest that makes our jobs easier. People used to assume, well, I don't want to be tethered to my job, and I'm like, well, I don't want to sit in an office. And now remote work is kind of a thing, and working from your phone, or my wife has a completely remote job doing finance. And so when I travel, she travels with me just to go hang out at the hotel, because when I get paid to speak at some of these big events, I get put in fancy resorts sometimes for like 3 or 4 days. She can work completely remotely because she took advantage of the tools. There is no holdouts that want to work in the office, but it's like anything else. It's like, how do you use the tools to leverage things better for you, to make yourself more efficient and more desirable in the workplace? Write a newsletter. Content ideas for a credit union. I thought this was a fun idea to start talking about how you prompt ChatGPT for something. I started really basic. We'll switch to actually having you prompt it. But this is actually the results that I just grab, screen grab. Create engaging, relevant content for a credit union newsletter could be a great way to communicate with your members. You know, financial tips and tricks, member stories, credit union news, new products and services, community involvement, employee spotlights, industry news, financial literacy programs, security alerts and tips. I think Mark's doing all of these. Like,
Probably, he's probably already.
I don't think there's anything on here that Mark's not doing, with the exception of it didn't suggest build your business workshops. That's the only thing that wasn't on the list here. So Mark could go ahead and tell that.
Mark's smarter than AI.
Mark's doing more than the AI is doing.
That's why he gets to keep his job.
Yes. Let me see if I can make this big enough. Let's actually show you what a prompt looks like in real time here. Because I love it. I love when we do things. What is a question you would like to ask? Or and we'll try to keep this, scoped a little bit to business questions. But this is This is what a prompt looks like. So you're staring at the blank page, but let's create something. What would you like to someone throw something out there? What's the industry you're in and a challenge you have for creating a marketing around it?
What are the values of peer-to-peer advisory groups?
Oh, that's a good one. What is
What's
the value?
The value?
Yeah. Is the value of what is the value of your? By the way, you can use ChatGPT for free. I use the enhanced version for $20 a month, so it doesn't pause. But the free version. Collective wisdom, peer advisory groups offer a wealth of shared experience. It does this really fast. Accountability, networking, support and motivation, personal growth, confidentiality, benchmarking. Suddenly you don't have a blank page anymore.
Can you print that for me?
Yeah, this is
Mark does that.
yeah. In some, I like this. In some, the value of peer advisory groups is the collective wisdom experience of peer support and accountability they provide in potential personal information and growth. It's wild. Like that quickly, we just created a pretty good baseline for something, and you could take and expand on like how. Well, let's go ahead and ask the question because once again, context aware. How would I such a service? Feels weird typing and looking, so I think I got this all right.
You spelled service wrong, but I think it understood what you meant.
Yeah, it's really good at figuring out what I mean because I type bad sometimes. Yeah, identify your target audience, create a unique value proposition, develop a strong online
This is
presence.
nuts.
Yes.
It seems like they might do away with school book reports now because
Right.
kids will go in there and be like, just tell me this about this, and then there's their report.
Yeah, I think, and there's already some tools out there to help recognize when kids are using things like this. There's a little bit of genericness that comes out of it. It's one of those things if you start asking too big of a room full of people to pick a color, they always pick beige, so I think everyone can agree on. And there's a little bit of that going on sometimes with ChatGPT. I was going to follow through some meme. I did laugh. It says we thought AI was sentient because it sounds like corporate marketing, and we realized that corporate marketing is not sentient. And it does a lot of very generic corporate marketing speak. I think it's always a good starting parameter. It's not where you probably want to end, but it solves that blank page problem that you're facing when you do that. So you're not dealing with a too much to do there. So limit new chat.
So Tom, if I want to do like create a questionnaire for women in business,
Yeah.
okay, and then it prints out all of this, but now I want it to get more specific. So can you just keep going into
Oh,
the
yeah.
questionnaire and just keep
You keep
putting
asking it.
down?
You keep asking it. Matter of fact, what's really interesting is you can correct it. Each one of these chats is an if session, so you can give it parameters and guide it to its journey. So if you say, don't include this or don't include, you see something in the text and you say, boy, yeah, you can keep getting more specific with it. You can keep kind of narrating it down and go, this is, I want to narrow down in scope to this. I want to focus on this topic. And you can use that word. I want to focus on this topic and insert name and topic. It's very natural language. That's what makes it so much more powerful because suddenly you don't have to have a bunch of coding skills to do any of this. You're just typing and interacting in a very sci-fi way, I will admit. I mean, this is the way in Star Trek, this is the way they talk to the computer. You know, Scotty, hey, computer, we're going to do this today. And it happens. And I think that's really makes it kind of fun. It's the same thing if I said, like, make, yeah, I'm a Star Trek nerd, sorry. Make Python script to generate code to make a basic calculator. Calculator. U-L-A-T-O-R.
Is this going to replace Google?
No. Goes back to the problem of it gives you some really wrong answers sometimes.
Oh. Is there more than one engine or just the Chat?
Oh no, there's a ton of them out there. ChatGPT is probably the most advanced one out there.
You can
So-
attach voice and everything to it, right?
Yeah.
Movements, facial.
So I said, we're going to go on. I said in doing code, but I want to show you something
Oh my
about
God.
how it works.
Now we're all lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. This is the best part.
Which is fine.
I told it to
Which is fun.
build a calculator that has an interface on it like that, not just do some parameters in code. It's writing the entirety. It's building a web-based calculator that would be able to be embedded in a website and actually do all the calculations you wanted. I don't know how to code that either. I'm a mediocre coder at best, but this makes me a pretty one there. It's now walking you through where you would type these, how you would see your calculator, how you get it set up on your computer. So, like I said, this literally makes people, like if you have a project, and now if you're learning code, it's also good too, because learning code is the same problem of where do I start? Oh, cool. It wrote this framework, it built a calculator, it has a little web interface on it. You can tell it to build web pages, you can tell it to do HTML, it starts writing all of it, and you're like, this is just kind of cool.
So type in who by, I was thinking about you were saying narrow the questions to more specific. Type in who buys snow cones.
Shave ice.
Shaved ice.
But that's what you call it. I think.
No, that's what it's called. It's shave ice.
All
There's
right,
a difference
whatever.
between snow
Whatever.
cones and shave ice.
I think it's going to give me a really...
being,
I think it's going to give me something weird if I type that. Shave ice is also known as shaved extra snow cones. Food enthusiasts, event attendees, families with children. So it definitely has some answers for you on that.
right.
Tom?
But that would help you narrow a market.
Yes.
When you hit regenerate response, what does it do? Does it continue
Oh.
to narrow it down?
No.
What are the parameters of refining it?
So first regenerate just says, and this is also one of the kind of weird things about ChatGPT, you can ask it a question and get a different answer each time you ask it. So my ChatGPT, not because I've customized it in any way, it's simply, as a matter of fact, it wants to know, was this response better or worse or the same? It'll keep regenerating things. There's some level of random to it of when it does. As a matter of fact, sometimes it may give one of those off-the-wall hallucination answers. We don't know why. We don't know if you're going to get it. We don't know if I'm going to get it. We don't know if it's going to do it. Sometimes this way you have to spend a little time reading it and things like that. But it's just very fun to be able to go through all of this and figure it out. Actually, I wonder if I have in here, because my company just went through a merger, one of the things I think I have in here is the legal documents I did, which turned out to be, the lawyers used them, which actually shocked me. I had that is somewhere. We use it for a lot of detail. I've got tons of, I keep all my chat history in there. I got sales teams using it. But it's actually got two ways. You can actually say, you can drop a legal document in there, and you can ask it questions. Say, please read this legal document. What are my naming rights that I'm left with after this document? The way my company merger went, turns out there's some weird parameters when it came to naming rights, because I own Lawrence Systems still. I wanted to sell my IT services company but keep my name, but then they want to buy leads for me, so it's a complicated deal that we did for my merger. That meant the lawyers didn't understand what I wanted very well, and I wanted to put it in legalese. So I actually said, hey, ChatGPT, can you write me a legal document so I can sell my company, keep my naming rights, and sell the leads to another company? And I gave the name of the company, CWR, my company, and it wrote all the little parts. It put the little legal notation. It did it's really nice. So I copied that and sent an email to the lawyers, and they used sections of it, the law firms did, to negotiate the contract. And then when I needed it read, I took the contract they sent me, because they actually had wording. They have, lawyers have 27-page boilerplate contracts. They change what you ask them to change. Further down, they assumed assets of my company. I didn't understand what that meant in the way that I said, does it nullify this section, nullify this section? Turns out it didn't. So ChatGPT told me, and I sent it back to the lawyers, and they fixed it, and then we signed the contracts. And I spent a lot less on legal fees than my, they weren't using ChatGPT on their side.
I was just going to say, do you think that attorneys use this for their...
Oh, yes. I think in the hands of an attorney, because so much stuff in the legal realm is boilerplate with slightly varied parameters. Legal is one of the most documented, because it's a very wordy for concise reasons, as it should be.
Right.
It's like your mortgage or anything like this. It's a very concise legal document with a lot of parameters in it. Those parameters are well vetted, because there's been enough clever humans poking at it to try to figure out how to break out of different contracts. So these contracts over time have matured to a level they are. So law is a place I see this absolutely excelling, because first, it gives people a better understanding of law. Now, obviously, not a lawyer, me or this. So But at least if you start knowing where to look or what questions to ask if you get a document in there, because you can say, explain paragraph 2 to me in plain English. That's the words I used. Because they had some words in there that I probably could have Googled each of them, but then that's hard. So putting in a parameter there and saying, give me a summary in plain English in this, and it was a wordier version of it. They explained, and they said, in the scenario that you have this, and it kind of gave me, because you could say, give me scenarios I've run into, and it kind of kept expanding. So me in about 15 minutes of ChatGPT, I understood the document better. I understood what needed to change in the document. I understood what I needed to copy and paste back to the lawyers. So
I have a client who does HR, and he uses it to create employee handbooks.
Oh yeah. Because there's so much of that kind of available online in a very templated way. And because the laws are kind of universal, once again, it's a well-documented, there's plenty of, it's probably read more employee handbooks than anyone on earth.
Right.
So you can kind of walk it through scenarios on that. So definitely one of the handy uses for it. But let's talk about, let me get this out of the way. There we go. Drag this back over here. Let's go back over to our presentation because let's talk some practical tools where you can use this. Now this is where we covered a lot of the science, and we had some fun, and we'll have some more fun later. And I really encourage questions. Hands down, because I tried a lot of these, and so in my conversation with Brett, why'd you talk me into this? These tools suck, was kind of how some of it started. Because I use it more of a technical way, less on the marketing side, but I wanted to sign up for all the latest marketing tools that companies got money for, and I found myself greatly disappointed, like very angry at who gave these people money and why. We'll talk about those people later. First, we're going to start with the tools that actually did work. So Canva is one I use a lot. I think Mark uses Canva. Anyone else use Canva in here? Oh, yeah. So if you didn't know, if you have a paid Canva account, just say yes to their beta for all their AI text tools. It's stupidly amazing. I actually, because of the nature of what I'm using Canva for, which by the way, this presentation is all done in Canva. It made all this. The Canva tools they have some AI that's not as noticeable, but now they have some very direct AI stuff on here. That's really impressive. Now, for creating presentations on anything or creating brochures, mailers, graphics, etc., client campaigns, wow, there's a lot you can do with Canva. It's kind of funny, I started using it 2017, I think. And for reasons, I kind of stopped using it for a little while. And then with my YouTube channel, this is how I generate all my thumbnails. Once I realized how good it was at doing that, all my little social media stuff, because people are like, oh, do you have a social media team? Because I post a lot. And I'm like, yeah, Canva. This is how I'm able to get a lot of work done without having to have people sitting and punching out these graphics. YouTube favors thumbnails with people in it, and one of the cool things is like the background remover, and it's automatic. And you're like, oh, it's a green screen, Tom. Of course, it's easy for it. So you just say, click a button and remove it. And it does make it easier with green screen, but it doesn't have to be. I grabbed a random cat picture, and I said remove the background. I pulled a cat right out of the background. You just click on images. It's really kind of cool, some of the tools they have in there that allow you to just do something like this. Like you can just say, I like this cat not in this background because this cat belongs on this next image, and you can start dragging it around and stuff like that. This is still, it's not exactly from what you see AI, but they're using tools like that because they contextually go, the only thing that's relevant in this is cat. So when I click background remover, I'm not highlighting the cat. I'm not saying remove the cat. I'm saying background remover, and it goes, cat must be subject. And it decided the shadow wasn't part of it. It decided whatever's in the background wasn't part of it. And some of these tools just make it really easy to use these. If you don't know what you want, they have a generator to say text image. I said, astronaut surfing. Why not? I mean, they don't usually surf, so I knew it was a pretty cool original image. And if you're building stuff in Canva, if you go to the little tool and you have whatever you're building, whether it's a Facebook post or a presentation, you can just go to the image side on the side and type in whatever you want, and it'll just start making it for you in the same way. By the way, astronaut has a weird hand. That's one reason I also say astronaut. I figured he'd have a helmet on because the face would have been horrific. It suffers. They didn't solve that problem either. So animals look awesome. People not so much. And if you have hands in there, boy, you're gonna have some weird thumbs on every finger or something. Or I don't know. You'll get the same strange effects we've seen earlier. I'm probably assuming they're using the same engine that Bing uses on the back end. Bing leases that to companies. That's what a lot of this goes on, and it's why Microsoft's a big investor, is there's the Canva, and then that's where you interact with it, but on the back end, Canva didn't build one of these massively huge data centers and spend millions and millions of dollars training it. They licensed the back end, and ChatGPT is probably the most licensed one out there. That's why Microsoft is so heavily invested in it, because that's what Microsoft's kind of in the game, is not necessarily being the front runner, other than your usual Office tools, but the back end for these companies is a place to, hey, query this, and every time you query it, it has a cost. So that's how they make their money on the back end. Canva has a cost, you pay monthly for it, and based on how many queries you use, it's like a buffet. You know, they're thinking you're not going to exceed what you spend a month in recurring on there. So
what is the monthly?
I think Canva is like $20 a month. Yeah.
Oh, but I thought you said something about it. You automatically have a free account.
You can have a free account. Canva, the AI stuff's all paid. They because it has a cost on their back end, so they always charge you for that. ChatGPT has a free account to do the typing back and forth to ChatGPT directly, which is owned by OpenAI. So OpenAI, well, technically OpenAI is now been bought by Microsoft, but if you go and look up like how to do ChatGPT, well, that's weird.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you what's that.
I see something different.
Oh.
Huh.
Is that good or bad?
Let me see if I click on it. Does it? Let me try refreshing it.
Forbidden.
See if we reload it. Did I lose the internet?
Yeah, he's taking over your presentation.
Yeah.
I know. It's like I'm talking too much about it. If not, I have. I cheated because I downloaded. Well, I predicted that computers will fail. So I have an entire copy of this downloaded. Huh, it says I'm not allowed to access that Canva page. Let me see if I can drag it over and then it'll work. So let me close that.
You didn't pay your $20.
I didn't pay my $20. You know, maybe we could do this live. Oh, let me see if that'll work. If I can just take the page live and drag it over here for you. Well, let's do it this way. That's strange. I'll see how much of this shows here and how much I got to drag over from the presentation. But so ChatGPT is free. You can share it for free. Canva, the tool we're working in right now, does have a cost to it. If you want the pro version, I really recommend. If you're going to use it, you'll end up needing the pro version. But the pro version comes with, they only have one flat price for the pro version, and all these fun AI tools in there. What's that?
It's just $120 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you buy it, yeah, it's at $120 a year. Yeah, I think it's like if you buy it annually, it's even cheaper. So, brainstorm ideas for marketing and running shoe company and the benefit of each idea. So, it did this really quickly. They got a prompt writer that's built into Canva, so you can actually, it's called writing ideas, and they're marketing ideas. You can just tell it, prompt it starts writing them, it starts putting them in there. And let me see if the presentation shows now, because this is where it gets interesting. What I did next, all in Canva with the present, because I think the next page will show. Because I put a presentation in a presentation. So, and full screen. Got it. Will let me do the presentation? No, I guess it won't. But, well, good news is I can actually present the presentation elsewhere. I can just bounce that presentation over here now. So what I did was create this presentation. We'll just drag this whole thing over so you're seeing what I'm seeing. I said, I grabbed those things I created where it's here, give me a running shoe. I have no idea. I know nothing about running shoes. I did nothing to this other than whatever Canva said to do. And I said, make a slideshow out of those ideas. So idea is, give me some brand ideas for a running shoe company, and then create a slideshow on it. And
How
I
did
didn't
you do that? Did you type it in?
Yeah, type it in. There's a thing in the brainstormer in there. If you play with the tool, it's pretty intuitive because there's like create something new. If you type in like AI tools, they have a tutorial page. It's really simple. Put your idea here, and it starts outputting here. It's really kind of that. And then It says make a presentation out of it, so I did. It says the perfect running shoe for health. It made up these images on the fly. These are not real, but it looks kind of real. It looks like Nikes. And it built the entire slide deck as you see it here. Oh, let me click on each one of them.
Can you use your own pictures in the slide?
Oh yeah, you can swap them out. Yeah, okay, click on this. I can't click on the back, of course. It put all these together, all the words on the slide and everything else. You can swap out any image you want, but I just thought this was kind of fun, how easy this was to start creating the basics of a presentation. You can do color selection, you can do all the little parameters, like I wanted to favor blue colors, or I chose orange because why not? This is some of the tools you can use inside of Canva that are really impressive. And by doing this as a basis, like I said, I always come back to I get stuck on that blank sheet problem a lot, just like I know a lot of people do. Even if these aren't all the images I want, and maybe I want to swap them out for my own, cool. I got a slide deck, I got a presentation with 9 slides started with a theme to it. I can duplicate on any of the slides to change the words, but it took most of the words I created off all those prompts and inserted them all, so a lot of the work is done. Now you just got to get to those nitty-gritty details of what makes this my brand and things like that. These are just, it's really impressive how well it can do all of that. People running cropped images of shoes and things like that. Thank you for letting me share my passion for running and fitness with you. Yeah, I didn't say that, it said that. That's what that decided was the last slide for it, which I thought was kind of cool. All right, the other ones are not slides that are embedded, so I can go back to presenting for those. It's hard to see the mouse. It's up there and right over here. All right, so only a few more slides, but we'll do some more interactive. But now I know you can't put a slide in a slide. It'll give a message like that. It's called Magic Write, though. This is the name of the tool that they have inside of there. You just describe what you want it to generate, and that's how I built all of that. I start with their Magic Write tool. I like the simple naming, Magic Write. It magically wrote an entire slide presentation about shoes. And like I said, I don't know anything about shoes. I don't know anything about running. I don't do those things. Not very well, anyways. So I wanted something out of context because I spent so much of my time at the my headspaces in tech. Now this tool I want to talk about that's very actionable and useful for people, especially for doing any type of social media campaigns and marketing campaigns. You can be pretty wild with this is Zapier. Zapier is a service that connects things together, and the term we use in the tech world, we call it low code, no code. That's actually code word for you don't have to be a programmer to make this work. You just have to understand flow and fundamentals of how I want to connect services. So it's trigger action. This thing happens, then this is the action you take. And it's done in 100% plain English. This is not necessarily a directly AI tool, but it does have some AI features built into it. But I like to mention it because it's so simple for people to do things like create a flow, for example, and it doesn't have to be, this is my flow for when a new YouTube video is created on one of my channels. But new video created, but this can also be email sent to you. This can be if you're using HubSpot to gather your leads, whatever that trigger is that gets you started for your sales process or process of posting something. You can even say when I post on Facebook, you should then copy it over to Twitter, copy it over to these other social media. Or when I post on LinkedIn, it should also go here. So for me, when we upload a video to YouTube, because back to how do I get a lot of things done, I create all the graphics in that Canva, we load it only up on a YouTube channel, only. And from the YouTube channel, this checks all the time. It's running in the background. Zapier goes, hey, look, Tom uploaded a new video. Brett would probably like that post on his LinkedIn, so we post it to Brett's LinkedIn. Then we post it to Tom's LinkedIn. And then it goes on Twitter. And then we wait 5 days because Twitter's kind of ephemeral and things fall below. So in 5 days, we tweet it again. But you can't post the same thing again. There's actually more parameters that keep going. Because after 5 days, we changed the words around a little bit. Hey, in case you missed it. So instead of it saying new video, the next time it posts after waiting 5 days. And this is all just plain English to set up as it is. Like I didn't have to go and know anything about YouTube. I say connect YouTube. It brings up a list of all the channels you logged into. It says, which one would you like to connect, Tom? And I go, oh, this one. And then I had Brett who had his LinkedIn. I say, hey, Brett, log into my Zapier account and connect your LinkedIn. So it says connect my LinkedIn. And Brett was already logged into LinkedIn, so it's confirmed. Brett, would you like Zapier to be allowed to talk to your LinkedIn? And he just said, yes. All right, Tom, you're all set. So now automatically, Brett looks like he's posting things. We customize Brett's words different than mine, so me and Brett aren't posting the same content. Hey, check out the new video Tom Lawrence made. Hey, check out Tom's new video, is how it sounds like Brett talking. And then the actions kind of build from there. But this tool allows you to build a lot of these automations, and this is like going into a little deeper, like is it new video by search, new video in channel. It's all just very, whatever the parameters are for what you're connecting to it, very plain English, not high level. You don't have to be super computer genius to do this, but this allows you to build those automations. Now, what goes wilder is my friend on closing of sales, he's got a Zapier automation because when he closes a deal and someone spends money with his company, he automatically has their address and everything. You know, we get all that information when we take their payment. He's got it tied to a couple of gift companies. I wonder if Send Out Cards is in there. It might be. And you can have it just kick off that event. He sends chocolates and cookies to his clients automatically when he closes a sale. He doesn't have to do anything. There's all these different businesses that build automations on the other side. So once you're done, like, hey, we closed the sale, these are the processes, Zapier is part of it. And on new sale, close, money exchange hands, or you can even, if you've got a big enough company doing B2B, it might be worth it for your lead gen. When someone takes the time to contact you with all your information, send them a gift basket, however you want to do it. But you can build that as an automated process. So one, nobody misses it. Two, it happens so fast, like as soon as the deal's closed, it's en route. You're not trying to wait on, oh, we didn't have time because the marketing department was really busy. They're behind, they're working on something, they forgot to send it out to that customer. Or trinkets, if you have trinkets or gifts that you want to send people, of whatever that might be. There's a lot of automation you can build with this. It's just really, really slick.
Is there a charge for that?
Yeah, Zapier is, I think it's like $150 a year. It's relatively cheap. It's like I tell people, it kind of looks expensive until you go, wait, how much does it cost to have a person do all this? I'm like, hold on. This is where you can get even fancier with it. This is where there's a direct AI plugin for it. So ChatGPT is great for going over and talking to it, but for here, how to use ChatGPT, and these are very detailed tutorials that I grabbed from their site. You can actually use this to write and send your emails. I prefer the option they suggest that's in there because we don't know what ChatGPT will send. I don't know if I have to send automatically in case it hallucinates. But what you can do is go through and say, hey, when I get an email to my sales box, read that email, make a reply based on these parameters, put it in my draft. And it even has an option to create 3 variations of the reply, create 3 draft responses. This is kind of great for salespeople because now you get someone who had a question about your stuff, boom, it has an email ready for you to hit send, for you to review. You can go through that. This is all stuff you can connect to your Gmail, your Outlook, whatever you're using for email, build it. How to automatically label emails with ChatGPT. Who wants inbox 0 where we have no things in our inbox, or what's the context you're missing from a lot of the emails? This is a neat feature too because you can actually have it go through and automatically index all of your emails, and then you can query and ask it questions to find that ticket from Delta. Find that flight I did to Baltimore because I need the receipt for it to turn in for my expenses, and I know I've got 73,000 emails floating around in my inbox. Somewhere in there is something important. He can find it for me. And I think this is like cool things you can do that are very helpful. How to automatically respond to Facebook Messenger was Zapier. Maybe you have a Facebook page or something and you want it to start automatically responding to people in some way when they start being interactive. And it gives you guide rails to put around it and then lets you know when to notify you and take over. That way it's not something stupid and it's actionable. Very close to the end, so I'll get to the bad stuff. So, Synthesa, I don't know. This company is apparently a market leader, blah, 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 a bunch of awards. I will tell you, it just creates creepy AI things that talk like this and tell me it's going to sell me things. I was completely unimpressed by this. I tried several video ones, and I'm just going to say, I don't believe the hype. I was using this one. I had this one this morning because it does do better than the others. It does cloned voice samples. So you scan images of yourself. Just take a bunch of pictures of yourself so it can remove the background. And what it does is it can create autoresponders in your voice. It's okay. I'm going to say this one. I'll give this one maybe an okay rating. If you said a greeting that's short. Now, where you can build automation, is if someone emails you, you don't know who the person is, like Mark sends me an email, I can have it automatically, it has automation for this, where, hey Mark, thanks for reaching out to me. I will be with you shortly, blah, blah, blah. Just want to respond to your email, let you know I got it. Like you can have a script that it types and you can put some fillers in for what the person's name is or maybe why they contacted you. I think for that it works. It feels like I sent you a personal video and you get it like within, I think it takes 2 to 4 minutes from the time you send it to the time it generates the emails. It's kind of neat, but I still found it kind of robotic, and at least it does sound a lot like me when you upload your voice. That was kind of cool, but it's not expressive. It's not enthusiastic. That's something where these companies have a long way to go. And I don't know how you would feel about getting a robotic version of me sending you a message. I don't know. I don't know if you think I'm just blowing you off. That's how I would feel. Someone sent me that. I think I'd feel that way. So once again, I'm not selling you these tools. I'm telling you what I feel about them and why I think they're a little overhyped. Summarize Slack and cut through the noise. This is kind of cool if you deal with communication channels at your company. We use Slack. We have 32 employees. There's a lot of noise in there, and these are kind of cool. You can grab it and summarize what went on. These can be management tools to try and figure out what were the employees babbling about, because there's 1,100 messages. It's 4 o'clock on a Friday. I'm not reading through 1,100 messages that employees posted. What were they babbling about today and wasn't important? There's a lot of different summary tools out there. I'm not sure which ones are the best yet because I've played with a few of them. They do this pretty well. If you have long meetings and you do them over Zoom, there's great tools that will summarize the Zoom meetings and put things together for you. That's actually very helpful, so you can hand that to the people who weren't there or people like me who zone out in meetings. So I like some of the summarizing tools. That's where I'm going to say where there's a lot of positive value you can get out of some of these AI tools.
Tom, I thought you were saying these were ones that you don't like.
This one, I didn't like the other ones. This one's okay, the summarizers. I would say the video ones are the definitely don't like.
So Summarize Slack, that was the Spoke AI? Or?
Yeah, the Summarize Slack is kind of cool. Spoke AI, they summarize a few different things. They summarize Slack and a few other tools. That I would say is on the, I do like, they still miss some context. Like if you dump a bunch of data in there, I feel like they get the idea of what's going on, but they do. Sometimes they're funny because one of the meetings, since I had one of the notes was it had some gibberish that I would still take these tools and correct them a little bit. So we had a meeting summary and it said something like Jason said a lot or something. It has a couple other things in there where it summarized it but it didn't understand what he meant. So it put something different in there. So you still kind of have to gauge back and forth the tools or not. Once again, they all suffer from some of those same problems, but I think they are very helpful for doing some of that.
Have you run into, with the summarizing tools on the Zoom calls, have you run into them continuing to enter Zoom calls that you don't want them to be on, or maybe if you're not there, it enters on your behalf?
Yes, that's tuning the parameters in can be tricky. We're not sure because we played with some of them, but I don't know. They scare me a little because if we're talking about a lot of customer stuff, I always worry about what they're doing with all the data. We talk about, we're not sharing passwords, but we're talking about customer strategies and things like that. And being in IT means we see the most in-depth. Matter of fact, we have to deal with like, hey, they're about to sue someone, they're about to split the company over some legal dispute. We have to discuss what the technical ramifications were sometimes for these companies. So I always worry about when they're in there and what would happen if someone breached the data. So yeah, definitely always think about the context. If you are in healthcare and you may be viewing up patients, I don't know how compliant or if these would pass muster for compliance. Probably not. These companies are in startup. We want to tell you how excited mode we are. They're not in the mode of data security sometimes. That was actually the talk I gave last week was for a large venture capital fund who says, can you please scare my all these portfolio companies because some of them have made mistakes and they don't believe me. So I spent a day in Baltimore just training developers on how to be more secure and more thoughtful. And it turned out really well. They were very receptive to it. So, but AI Encyclopedia, or AI Cyclopedia, I think is how it's done. This is a really neat website a guy put together where he's made it a hobby of trying to keep up with all the latest tools out there. So I use that once in a while just to go see, hey, what's out there? And it's well grouped. So the grouping inside of here is, for AI Cyclopedia is kind of clever. You can find all the different categories of all the different tools. He uses an AI tool to run through the news to find all these latest companies, and it puts them in like a very categorical way to find them. He's got like 3,400 different AI tools, but that's why the categories are so important, to try and figure out which ones are there and which ones are not. There's a lot of social media ones. Because I'm mostly doing Zapier for my social media, and it's kind of narrowly scoped, but there's a lot of them that have similar writing prompt tools built into them and things like that as well. So there's a lot of those on the list in there. I just didn't have time to try them all. Almost every one of them has a free trial, and it kind of comes down to like, which do you like? One of the really popular ones, I thought I had a slide on it, was ClickUp. ClickUp is kind of a combination of project management grouped together with a bunch of AI tools bundled in. It's kind of overwhelming when you first look at it. I don't use it professionally, but I did set up an account just to go through, because I know several people that swear by it, like, oh, you got to use it. It will build all kinds of just really cool projects out with teams of people, and it has a lot of prompt systems in there that are kind of automated, so they've been kind of heavy on doing it. And because they're a company that's actually well established, just like Canva is, Canva's been around for years, they actually have tools that are useful and not just hype. So it's got yeah, I would say it's pretty, that one's decent from everything I've heard on there. But Canva's still my favorite of all the ones I mentioned. If you're wondering, like, if you had to pick, Tom, I only want to spend $20 a month on something, or I think if you buy it annually, it's $10 a month. Hands down, Canva's got like the best suite of tools that are the most actionable, I think, for small business. They're a very collaborative tool because you can actually have more than one person working on it at once. So that one's definitely handy. We're about 10 minutes up for where I have to go, but I'm easy to reach. I put just my generic sales on there because that's the easiest way to like engage with us if you want to hire us for consulting and things like that. After the split, LawrenceSystems.com is technically now a media company, so that's where all my YouTube stuff goes. CNW Repair is the IT consulting company, so that's what I do professionally. But we're still located at 14 Winboro, Pennsylvania Road. We're just around the block over there, so we still have an office there, and we have an office in Toledo. And any questions?
On Chat GPT, what did Love's stand for?
I forgot. I would have known. Well, hold on. I know who we can ask. I have an idea of who might know that.
Google?
Hold on. We're too many windows open. Where'd the other window go? You gotta drag it back over. I'll ask the question first and I'll drag it over. What does...
If we get a hallucination.
I still hope we do. ChatGPT. Generative pre-trained transformer. I knew it was some weird thing. I remember looking up for it. I'm like, that doesn't roll off the tongue.
Neither does GPT. It took me forever to figure out what he was saying.
Okay, when you were talking about someone who knows, like taking my job, you said someone who knows how to use it might. Yeah. That was pretty...
It's like any tool. If you said, I refuse to use computers, I don't think Mark would hire you to work at the bank. So, yeah, it's not like this is the end of work or anything like that. I think that's an overstatement. That's a great headline, and that's a good clickable headline in the news. But we've had ChatGPT for, 9-10 months now, and outside of one story that was actually true for a very narrowly scoped, software company that makes shopping cart software, I don't really see this as now I think companies are going to use it as a growth tool where they can figure out how to integrate it without hiring people. So there's ways that can grow companies faster leveraging this, but it's not the same as it's going to end all of our jobs. We're all out of work tomorrow, folks. Pack it up.
It's pretty creative, though.
Very creative.
Right. One of the uses I have it for, and it definitely makes it a little bit more humanized, I guess. I tend to over-explain things in emails or sometimes under-explain, so I will just copy and paste like my email that I sent out, maybe it's to the whole company, and say, summarize this in less words, and it'll respit my email back out to me. So just being able to use it as a tool and not a sole purpose, because if you use it as a sole purpose, people will know. If you just copy and paste and put it as, people will know. So just use it as a tool.
Yeah, this is a fun use case. So create a poem about why I should make it downriver community of Federal Cranky. And river dreams take flight, where rivers flow with pure delight. I weave a poem for reasonable crags who banquet downriver hand in hand. So, Mark, I'll send it to you.
That is so funny.
Might be on our website.
It does. So one of the, if you want to know what Tom uses it for when it's not programming, it's limericks. So turns out I get a lot of spam. This for a reason, being that you have 53 million people viewing YouTube means they all start reaching out to you sometimes, or at least some percentage of them. And of course, they want to sell me things. So I take their sales stuff, and this is me having fun with them, and I reply with limericks of why I won't buy their product. So I put the company, write a limerick on why I don't like your product, and it writes it back, and I send it back to them, and I get the best responses. And I know these people sometimes are working hard. They don't want to have a bad day. So at least I've lightened up their day. I still told them no. I don't want whatever it is you're trying to sell. But it is a great use case for this. I highly recommend it. It'll bring a smile to your day as well.
That is funny.
Yeah, these are fun things you can use it for. You can even say, like, write it in iambic pentameter. You can get narrowly focused. You can say, write it in the style of Robert Frost. So I have a series of tech poems I created where I like Robert Frost. Like, well, it doesn't fit my tech world very well, but we have a security incident. So how about we take cybersecurity incident and turn it into a Robert Frost poem, and it actually became really popular on LinkedIn. People are like, are you clever to come up with this? I'm like, look, I'm just gonna be honest, I am not this clever with ChatGPT. I'm clever enough to know how to use ChatGPT, because I don't know anyone else who did this, and then I had a whole series of posts on it that were kind of amusing.
That was really fun.
But yeah, there's all kinds of little fun things. I always encourage people to start having fun with it. It's a good way to engage and learn with it. By the way, I wrote way too many poems, too big for poems.
Yeah.
Make with them and you come to see a partnership that will forever be a beacon of trust, a river of care. River unity will always be there. I mean, it's kind of a lot. Wow. Yeah. So,
That is super cool. Up again, so
oh, sure.
Capture your stuff.
That is nuts.
I know, isn't it?
It like I said, it makes me laugh. It's just a lot of fun doing that. I get to present.
Is there something out there that you can read or see how ChatGPT was created?
Yeah, kind of. The problem is it's very, very technical. So there's tons of scientific papers on it. How many of them are is I tried to do the most human explanation. I've read through the entirety of these science papers, and then I'm trying to discern it down into, because I could do an hour and a half of just how it's created, but I know that would be boring. I don't think you guys would be awake. You certainly would be laughing at poems. So, but the whole like I said, it's mostly how they train data sets. Like when I was working with Microsoft in 2017 to do a bunch of interviews, they were training it on all the models, like how to figure out what apples are and things like this. This stuff's been in the works for a long time. It just took we didn't have the compute power to, like, training data sets. You like when they were trying to train it on some of these things, even smaller data sets, they'd upload it, it was costing them like $20,000-$30,000. They'd have to run on a computer for like a month just to get to the point where then it could recognize an apple. Now that's seconds. And we've just iterated really fast over the last few years. And you got to think about it this way. The data set's cut off at 2021. ChatGPT is introduced in late 2022, or no, I think it was early this year. Yeah, early this year they introduced it. Data sets input, crunch time, then they can present it to you. Think about how many months that was of the computers running at full tilt, processing 8 billion cat images to figure out what a cat looks like. It's still getting hands wrong.
I'm confused about when you say it's up to 2021. It's not continuing to go.
They're still working on that. It's when they said they trained it on the internet, they have data all the way up to 2021. It's tricky to insert new data into it, but they're now building models so you can point it at websites and it can contextually aware that. But it's contextually aware in that conversation. It's not adding it to its knowledge base necessarily.
So it's that current unused.
Right. That's something that's really hard for it to do. That's actually, I didn't talk about this, kind of a downside of it, where unfortunately we're going to see a lot of abuse coming up in the next things. If I told it to write me 5 reasons potatoes are amazing, it'll do it. If I told it to write 5 reasons potatoes are awful, it'll do it. It doesn't care. So if you remove all the guardrails, you can write 5 reasons, or how about create me an entire website with 75 articles, and it'll do this in a matter of seconds, of why I shouldn't vote for this person or why I should vote for them. And now you see a professional looking website. And this is what we're actually trying to fight against as me and many people in the community, of now that we're able to generate real looking news where it creates photos and everything. It looks like a real news site. Like there's images of this person doing something bad because I told it to create an image of them doing something bad. And now how do you distinguish that at all as a website? And the fact that I can, there's actually a company that builds, so we work with one of these companies. I believe their name out, so I'm always, it's a weird thing they do. They create millions of websites for job postings. That's what their job is. They look like real websites. They're not. They're fake websites in a way, but they're not. They're websites that look like a website for people looking for jobs, and they do funnel you into it. So there's probably, I think last I looked in the record said almost 10,000 websites that got created for applying jobs in places. They all funnel out of one company that happens to be based out of Michigan. They're using this generative AI to create these websites, so when you search for a job, you're applying what you think are 10 different places. And by the way, this company's not hiring anybody. What they do is they aggregate the jobs, and then they sell them to people who want to buy them, and they're able to create websites faster than this sector. They focus on only 2 different sectors of the market doing this, but these companies come to them because anytime someone applies to a job, it lands on their websites first. It doesn't land on the company actually hiring. It's kind of shady, but I don't know. It's a weird business model. It's really, we just do some of the tech support for like their servers and stuff like that, but it's also kind of scary when you see how effective it is. I mean, this company they got a printing press for money because they've now optimized in these job markets the supply line across the United States for people applying for these jobs. But tweak that a little bit. What if I wanted to create a hate campaign against anything? And we're seeing it. So these are some of the guardrails off of AI that gets a little bit scary to me because of people abusing it, and then the social media companies not regulating the abuse and posting of these things on there, where it is not, the way I look at it is very simple. It's like they should not allow any political posts. Like, done. Stop it. I don't care who they are. Just you can't buy ads during the election season on Facebook, Twitter, wherever. End of story. I don't care who you think you're for. You can't vet them. They're created too fast. So there's actually a large coalition of us tech people that are actively fighting in Congress for this. So
it's too much money. It's not going to work.
Yeah. We're on the. Well, there's actually been some buy-in from some of them because some of the lesser funded but still funded enough are realizing that, oh boy, I might get run over like a steamroller in this next one. So there's actually, and it's bipartisan. They're like, yeah, maybe we should all take a little break from this because we've created a machine that's kind of broken. So those are like the scary things of AI if you want to go off on a little bit of tangent. But for the most part, making poems is way better. So we'll stick with the happy note. Yes.
I want to ask you about copyright.
Oh, yeah.
Now, can this create the same thing for Robin that it creates for me if we ask the same question?
Nope, it creates something unique for every person. But the issue of copyright comes up. Getty Images, we don't know where this case is going to go. Getty Images is a large image house that has a little logo. If you've seen it, you buy images from Getty. They sell things, and photographers sell to Getty, and people using it for their newsletters buy stuff from Getty. So because so much of Getty Images are public-facing with their little copyright logo, someone noticed that one of the images, it always added the copyright logo because when they fed it to millions of cat pictures, they used Getty Images because Getty Images has, if you type in cat or dog, it'll have an image of those. I'm like, hey, great, a great pre-labeled data set. The problem is every time you start generating a cat or a dog dynamically, or a cow on a tutu, it was adding the Getty Images logo because every animal has a Getty Image logo. So garbage in, garbage out. So Getty Images is going, hey, you kind of used it, and now you've got our logo being generated automatically because back to we taught AI what something looks like based on the inputs. If every dog has fur, okay, we know dogs are furry, but every dog also happens, or at least a lot of dogs have a Getty Images logo on them. So every dog has a Getty Image tattoo now. So there are some definite copyright problems. There's a lot of places going, hey, you took my data. There's all these, because they went through all the different Twitter, all the social media. They just gathered all of the human content that was created to generate this. So there's a lot of copyright questions, and there's a lot of questions of, is this what they refer to as derivative work? So if I can write something based on something else, and it's referred to as derivative work, is it derivative now? And that's the question. And of course, to answer your question very specifically though, if we went and regenerated the cow into tutu, it would generate 4 completely different cows every time I asked the same question. So the good news is the cow in a tutu we made is ours and it's unique. I can email it to people if they want it. Any other final questions?
Can ChatGPT realize when you're going through making all the cat pictures?
Yeah.
Can it determine when it created the cat picture when it's back to?
No, has no idea.
Refining it. So It has no way of knowing that at all.
It does not know where the data came from, and that's actually what's being plotted out in court right now with the Getty images. We don't know. We use the internet, and we're sorry, Getty, you have them on your page, and so your page is, it's a question of, and this has already been ruled on by a lot of companies. LinkedIn famously sued around 2017, and they lost. They sued companies that scrape LinkedIn to gather data for where people work. There's like, you know, a few of those different sales databases that you can look up, Salesforce, HubSpot, et cetera, and you can find people's email addresses and stuff like that. Well, they did it by scraping LinkedIn. LinkedIn said, that's our proprietary data. They said, no, it's actually content people uploaded, and because you are a public-facing website, we were authorized to do this. And they said, no, we gathered it, therefore we hold the rights to all this data, which is actually weird because it's your data, not their data.
Right.
We weren't represented. It was just a lawsuit between LinkedIn and several of those companies. But they kind of ruled, if you create a public-facing website that doesn't have a login and you have all the data on there, it's fair game for the users of the internet to have a copy of that data because you chose to make it public. So I don't know if Getty has a leg to stand on. I mean, it looks funny seeing all those images that a couple of the image creators did, but I don't know. Well, it's one of those things. There's going to be a lot of cases. Lawyers are going to definitely be employed for a long time, making a lot of money. So I follow the cases. It's going to be interesting.
But the bottom line is, even though you said we shouldn't be scared, is we don't know what's true anymore at all.
We didn't before. They always talk about like a post-truth world. The reality is we only had truth for a very narrow amount of time. Before photography, we didn't know what the truth was. How do we know when Lincoln was shot? Someone said so. Someone riding on a horse came by and yelled it. So we've survived as humanity with there's a Project Gutenberg and a couple books on this as a topic that enlightened me because I was certainly, it's the end of it. We also thought the end of everything was Photoshop. Photoshop is now part of the lexicon. It's been around since 2002, 2001, maybe longer. We still take photos and still assume truth to them despite Photoshop being prevalent. So I don't really think this changes it. You still have to be a forever skeptic on whatever you see. Think about the source of that data, the validity of it, and weight it just like you would anything else. So I don't think we really have changed that much. We certainly have more information coming at us than ever before. So it's definitely interesting. But tools like ChatGPT can also give you history. When did this website show up? Oh, this website that claims to have 10 years of history showed up last week on this person with a legend. Like, oh, okay. We have a piece of information that probably tells us that this is some BS here. Final questions for Mark? Let you all out. I don't want to keep you guys too long, but I'm more than happy to stay and answer questions.
This was so awesome.
Yeah, this was
so
so
awesome. Yeah.
So you learned something, and you have some tools you can use. That's cool. And I got to laugh. One of my goals is, can we make people laugh a little bit? Even the cybersecurity ones we try and do that. The only thing I didn't do is the cybersecurity one. We did a really big event down in Florida a month ago, and we made it kind of a joke. But we hid bourbon in the podium, and we passed out bourbon to everyone in the front row.
Nice.
And we didn't ask for permission. We figured we could ask. It was a business professional event, but we knew a bunch of perfect people like bourbon. Me and my friend both like bourbon, so it was later day in the event. We're like, we're just like passing out. We're like, how's your presentation starting? Only we were the highest rated presentation, and someone that said we cheated because we had bourbon, and then one person complained about it. It's all anonymous. The feedback was hysterical. We were just like, they were so good, but I found it very unprofessional. They served bourbon. I love it. Which I thought was like, oh, come on. It was.
Yeah. If they don't drink it, they know someone who does.
Yeah, come on. We just said anyone want it. We bought the expensive stuff. We had Angel's Envy. I think it's like $129 a bottle. So we had like 4 bottles.
It's nice.
It was an expensive conference and it was well funded. So were we. So we were like, let's share with the crowd here. Let's make this fun.
That's awesome.
That reminded us our first.
Yeah, we only had it for all the good people. We just laughed. We're like, can I frame this?
Right. Yeah.
only bad feedback. So, well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good job.